You ever take a look at something for just a minute, get completely sidetracked, and think, but what if I focused on this so as to say that I wasn't distracted? That's how I came back around to 1991's Chojin Sentai Jittamon in late 2024. I made a video about the Kamen Rider Agito TV special, thought about making some attempt at humor concerning a scene involving smoking, and had a scene from Jetman come to mind. Yeah, that one. Jetman is an important entry for both the broader Super Sentai series and for the development of the person you hear today. This was the first series I watched in its entirety after learning of Super Sentai as a kid who had grown up with Power Rangers. My gateway into a very similar show, albeit one that is, subjectively, more likely to feature better writing and, objectively, more likely to be more violent. Okay, last time I'm using that clip out of context. There we go. Jetman came onto the airwaves at an important time, when Super Sentai was in a rut for both viewership and, supposedly, writing. As of right now, I have not watched a lot of Sentai for the period I'm referring to, but I have heard it said that writer Soda Hirohisa was burning out by this point. That's not to say it couldn't have been good at this point. It'd be reckless of me to write off Five Men when I only watched it during the dark days of it and many other Sentai not having completed English fan subs, but there is the conclusion you could draw from the following fact. Soda is credited as the head writer for HQ Sentai Fivemon, and Turbo Ranger, and Live Man and Mask Man, and he didn't write every episode for these seasons, but still a majority for each one. In his place for Jetman would be Inoue Toshiki, who is coincidentally both the only other tokusatsu writer I have mentioned on this channel at this point, and the writer of the tokusatsu piece I reviewed before this. Jetman would hit the ground running with a 3-part opening story arc. Maybe it should be more than just the first 3, but 3 is what I'm saying it is. We open with an opening.
Chojin Sentai Jittamon!
Sorry, I got too used to cold openings. There was no need for me to phrase it like that. But enough about me repeating the same lines over and over again. Kageyama is singing. Always nice to hear. Watching over the Earth from orbit is the Skyforce's Earthship. What is Skyforce, you might ask? At first I was going to say that they were just the larger organization that the Jetman were a part of, but after rewatching the whole show while writing this, they're something of a non-entity. It's some kind of a military organization, and after the Earthship blows up 5 minutes from now, there's only a few references to Skyforce throughout the series. When the giant robots need repairs and when new weapons are being developed, it's the Jetman themselves doing the work. There's a 2-parter featuring a replacement team and there are references to higher-ups, and it really comes out of nowhere for a show that's almost entirely about a team of 5 and their commander. Getting away from my tangent, a worker robot is running amok. And this is why fully automated machines shouldn't be armed with anything, and anybody advocating for them is evil and dumb. But you already knew that, didn't you, dear viewer? The scene is brought under control by 2 members of Skyforce, Aori Rie and Tendo Ryu. This catches the attention of the commander, who nominates them for the J Project. She explains to them that they'll be altered by the Birdonic Waver. They'll have powers that surpass those of the average human. The only concern Rie and Ryu have is whether they'll get to keep working together. Well, ain't that cute? Now, let the human experimentation begin. Just as the machine finishes altering Ryu, the series' antagonists arrive, raising the question of why this had to happen in space. And if you tell me, because science reasons, well, you win this round, hypothetical viewer. This man, named Radige, is announcing to the people of Earth the invasion of their world by his group from another dimension, Byram. It's intimidating how he declares Vyram the new gods, his voice and image spreading everywhere, but it's perhaps a little too undercut by the elderly woman sleeping through it. Radige knows how to show off though, and blows up the Earthship. Well, ain't that tragic? Well, ain't that an unexpected mid-cry change in pitch that sort of takes me out of the moment? Yes, it is. Not to dwell on it for too long, but I did notice that later flashbacks to this scene do tend to not use that exact line read. Mr. Superhuman is knocked out by his commander and forced to evacuate using the Jet Hawk. The Bradonic Waver ends up going off in that collapsing ship, with its beams aimed at the Earth. Ryu wakes up, still not registering what happened.
リエを探しに行かなければリエを探しに行かせてください。
彼女は死んだのよ。
He cries over losing his loved one, and the commander's response to this is seriously pretty good.
泣きなさい。二度と泣かないためにバイラムと戦わねばならない。
She needs to get him focused. Ryu is one of the only people capable of combating this threat to humanity, but she's not telling him to just suck it up. Sorry if that feels like a digression, but given it's an early 90s action show, I really appreciate that it's not some dumb line about manning up. We're off to a fine start here. While the two begin their search, our first monster of the week, Jianmushi, or Dimensional Bug, starts killing people. By use of a radar, we find our second Jetman, a lady named Rokume-kan Kaori.
それじゃあ私がジェントルマンに？ジェットマンよ。
Kaori's getting an English word and a term made of two English words mixed up. Gentleman and Jetman don't sound as similar to each other in English as gentleman and gentleman do. It's always interesting to hear words doing things like that. Kaori, coming from a rich and privileged background, leads a boring life and is more than happy to fight alongside them.
僕には関係ないね。ほっといてくれ。
In contrast, we have the farmer Raita. He's having none of this.
君はバイラムの。
僕は野菜を作るのが仕事なんだ。第一僕は暴力が大嫌いだ。帰ってくれ。
Kaori stays behind to try and convince him, with vegetables being a good way to start a dialogue, but Ratige's timing is just awful. Naita hates violence, but is quick to attack the grunts when they mess up his field. Now, I phrase that in a certain way, but I don't think that makes him a hypocrite or anything. He doesn't like the concept of violence and just wants to be left alone with his vegetables, but he's quick to try and defend his livelihood when a threat is thrown right at him. Kaori calls for help, and Ryu flies back and transforms. That's a dang good throw, and it's important that he did that since an explosion knocks the two of them off a cliff.
早くブレスレットのスイッチを押すんだ。
Oh hey, they're playing a vocalist version of the opening theme song.
どうなってんだこりゃ。
感激ですわ。
And it's not played over them getting curb stomped until the very last few seconds. Sorry to take a jab at you like that again, Turbo Ranger. You're next on my to-watch list. You helped lower the obscurity of this channel, for which I am grateful. And I say that it's not over a one-sided fight, but the song is played over Raita crashing, and both him and Kaori not really fighting back well, with only Ryu defeating the grunts and even injuring the Dimensional Beast, forcing it to retreat. This is different from that other scene, however, as there is a point to having it play out this way. Ryu is a trained member of Skyforce. Our other four Jetmen are random civilians. They are not a well-tuned fighting force, and the episode is about to end without the final two members even showing their faces on screen outside of the credits. Vyram isn't a pushover, and the Jetmen, especially in this opening story arc, aren't prepared for this conflict. The episode concludes with a gathering of our four main antagonists: Ratige, Ray, Tron, and a woman whose face gets a gradual reveal. Oh hey Rie, nice to see you're still alive. Following a recap, the third warrior opens with one of those faces from the opening credits, a man soon to be named Yuki Gai, walking away with a woman and being accused of cheating in a card game. Anybody else getting Kamen Rider flashbacks? Outside of a high school, a student named Hayasaka Ako is going to do something because her new bird brain told her to. At least I think that's what's happening. After demonstrating her ability, Ako is asked to participate in a competition. And of course she'll do it. $20. Cash.
お安いもんですよ、お客さん。私さ、世界新記録出しちゃうから。ね？
Our team continues to search for their remaining members, but Ratige doesn't like that idea, so he turns the commander's fighter jet into a monster, forcing her to eject. But it flies away, so we're ignoring it for now. Working in pairs, Kaori and Raita find Akko, and Ryu and the commander find Guy. And right before being approached, Guy accidentally crushes his saxophone with his bare hand. I said it before, but this is giving off original Kamen Rider vibes.
だからもう泣くんじゃないぞ。ね。俺はショッカーによって子供を思い合わせられない体になっていたのだ。
While we're not going to be seeing any more issues like this, since it's likely just his body adjusting to these changes, might this have been something that could have been explored? No one's going to say that these people aren't people anymore, but there can be a disconnect for them since they are altered now. Missed opportunity maybe, but at the very least it isn't like this show was desperate for ongoing story threads. The pair try to recruit Guy.
しかしよ、いっそのこと人間なんざ滅んだ方がいいんじゃないのか。
I don't think that was the answer they were expecting.
障害問題に人種差別。確かに人類って愚かなもんだ。
Yuki Guy is a standout amongst characters in these kinds of shows. He's abrasive and is going to be butting heads with Ryu on more than one occasion, even after he loses some of his edge. Guy is not at all a typical hero guy. He's an ass on the surface while being a good person deep down.
俺を見ろ。お前に惚れてる男はここにいる。
Well, mostly, but that and his notable character development are a topic for a different time. Meanwhile, Akko is willing to fight, for a fee. She only asks for 1,500 yen though, which is less than the 2k she wanted for the competition. Akko just wants to be paid for her work, and Kaori is willing to pay her that. And then some.
1000万
It's more than 6,666 times what you were asking for, Akko. Wait, that was rhetorical, wasn't it? The dimensional bug has recovered, interrupting Ryu and Guy's surprisingly intense fight. Ryu is ambushed by the monster fighter jet, who also holds Guy hostage. He gets the monster to drop Guy and shows off his incredible throwing skills again. The 5 Jetmen are finally together, so it's time for their first fight as a team. This is a great first fight for the full team. Characters' personalities are coming through their actions. Even at the last minute when Guy doesn't feel like being a team player.
なんで撃たないんだ。気に入らねえな。命令ばっかりしやがって。この野郎！
Byron watches on, intrigued to see how they're able to actually fight back.
最初に奴らをやっつけた者が僕らのボスになるっていうのはどうかな。
Another interesting thing about them, even if it doesn't come into play this early on. Although Radiguet is something like the face of the group, there is no leader among them. Plenty of room for conflict among our antagonists further down the line, and a reason for why they won't cooperate with each other too much to just take out the Jetman. Akko understands the importance of what they're doing and returns the check. She didn't want that much money in the first place, but it shows the goodness of her character. And then there's Guy, ready to give us that clip I keep using. Even though his power was necessary for their victory today, Guy wants to be on his own, leaving us with a premise for the last episode of this opening arc. The power of 5 starts with something morbid. In the park, the commander shows off, demonstrates her ability to break stuff. Just a gal, easily throwing around 3 superhumans. She's training the 3 of them while Ryu is out looking for Guy. Speaking of the devil, Guy is flirting/harassing a policewoman.
怒っちゃ美人が台無しだぜ。なあ、俺とデートしねえか。ああ、そう。
He runs a red light right in front of her just to get her to talk to him.
何考えてんのよ。
もちろん君のことさ。
Oh, Guy, you were just... Well, you're just something, alright?
デートなら俺がしてやるぜ。
私って美人かしら。
At least she took it well. Ryu corners Guy, only for Guy to punch him and run off again. You know, I'm starting to get the impression Guy doesn't like him. The other 3 continue their training, pulling tires up an incline. Akko wants to give up, but the other 2 tell her she needs to keep going. Then, for some reason, it's Kaori who attaches her tires onto Raita's, letting him pull hers before Akko does the same. It's funny, sure, but it feels like Akko, the youngest of the group and the one who was just complaining, should have been the one to do it first. The commander can't see this, however, as she's in the bathroom, so she can be attacked by Byram. You see, dear viewer, you're not paranoid for wanting to be armed while in the bathroom. It is dangerous in there, just like the kitchen. Back at the training site again, Raita is in need of water. How convenient. How terrifying. Drawn appears with his monster of the week, Faucet Dimension, and attacks, causing them to retreat and the commander to call for Ryu. That'll have to wait. Ryu confronted Guy again, so Guy challenged Ryu to a race and settle things with him. So I guess Ryu's just not receiving any calls right now. Ryu has to drop out when some onlookers are attacked, and Guy criticizes him for not looking out for himself.
これだけは言っとく。人のことよりまず自分のことを考えろ。
それは違うぞカイ。人は自分のためだけに生きてるのではない。
That's true. They live so other people's lights can show up in the reflection on their helmets. Before he can drive off, Guy is assaulted by Faucet Dimension. Ryu saves him, but Guy goes anyway, leaving Ryu hanging. Fortunately for him, reinforcements arrive in a pretty cool entrance. Guy's conscience eats at him.
お前は俺たちの仲間だ。仲間を助けるのは当然のことだ。
なんであんな奴のことが気になるんだ。
The team works together and are able to easily destroy the monster. Ryu thanks Guy for joining, and Guy introduces himself to the girls. A sort of hologram of the antagonist shows up at the climax of the episode.
強ければ強いほど我々のゲームは楽しくなるのだ。
Also, I guess Ryu isn't close enough to see any resemblance, huh? Not that I blame him, given that younger me also wouldn't have noticed this was the same actress if the show didn't give her that entrance, because she's wearing a hat and that's apparently all you needed to fool me back then. Following that is the ending credits, which I have saved for talking about at the end. Kageyama Hironobu's Kokoro wa Tamago, or The Heart is an Egg, is one of my favorite ending themes. My favorite Kageyama song? Maybe. So how was this opening arc for Chojin Sentai Jettomon? I'll assume you're writing your answer in the comments, so I'll just read what I wrote while you do that. All these years later, this holds up extremely well. Over the course of 3 episodes, we have an interesting start for a superhero team. One volunteers for it, and the other 4 join by accident, with varying levels of willingness. The emotions and the plot get us started, but it's character work that makes it especially memorable, and that keeps it going for the full 3 episodes. You get to learn the positive and negative traits of our heroes, with personalities meant to work off one another and feel varied. Given the focus on relationships this season featured, it is one that lives or dies by its characters. For the team that can fly, the green screen is a tad distracting, but the wire work is good. Since they have an animal motif, even if they are all birds, the helmets are easier to make distinct from each other outside of just color. Jetman overall is solid. Some duds here and there for standalone episodes, but not enough for me not to still consider this one of my favorites. The high points are very high. It's got me to the point that I'm absolutely going to be watching more Sentai again. Which is important since I haven't made a video about Super Sentai in almost 5 years? Oh god, time is ever flowing and waits for no one. And this is the part where I keep talking so that the me that is editing this video knows to leave space for the end card, which is important for the 5 people who will actually see it. Thank you.